Hey there, solar folk. I may be the solar boy, but up until now, I have not actually had solar on my house, which of course throughout my career in solar is probably one of the main things that I get asked all the time. But up until now, I haven't had the perfect amount of motivation to put solar on my house. There is cash flow issues. I'm not just strapped with cash. I've had concerns with the way that the code approaches solar these days and have been waiting for things to get better on that front, which I'll go into later. And my power bill, when we first moved in, wasn't really enough to make solar be like, wow. You know what I mean? But all of those things have changed since we moved in here 5 years ago. And I'm gonna take you through all of my decision making, all of my design planning, all of the finances involved with putting a system on like this, and the technical details as well. This is going to be a series of videos called An Uncomfortably Transparent Guide to Solar by the Solar Boy. And this video, we're gonna be talking about the overview of why am I going solar now? What do I think I'm gonna be putting in? Where am I gonna put it? How is all this stuff gonna pan out? And what's the next thing I have to do? So let's get into it. So first, let's talk about the state of the industry and why is my decision so close to the passing of the big beautiful bill? Because that's absolutely a factor here. The big beautiful bill was passed a month ago at this point. We're now in August, and that was passed at the beginning of July. By the way, this is my greenhouse that I will finish at some point. These things just take time. But the big thing about the big beautiful bill is the Republicans tried to kill solar legislatively as much as they could. The tax credits that you hear about when you have those scammy solar companies telling you, oh, the government's gonna pay you to put solar on your house. All they're talking about is the tax credits that you get. Now, those residential tax credits, the ones that are for Joe homeowner who wants to put solar on their house, those are going away at the end of the year. And we could talk about how stupid that decision is, but the main thing we care about is that if you want to put solar on your roof and you want those tax credits, you gotta put it in and have it operational by the end of the year. Because if you don't, there's no guarantee it's ever coming back. So that's the first aspect. I have a lot of motivation right now when it comes to getting the solar on this year. So how can I possibly make that happen? Well, my wife and I make a little over $100,000 a year at this point. And a solar installation is gonna cost $40,000, $50,000, something along that line. We'll get into more of that a little bit later in the video. So to solve the finances problem, we're opting to go with a HELOC of about $60,000 home equity loan, home equity line of credit is what it's called. I think the introductory interest is like 5.5%, and then it'll go to whatever the market rate is, which I think is like almost 8% now. In the grand scheme of things, I think it pencils out to spend a little bit more on interest while we're trying to get this system up and running. So even if we end up paying, a bit on interest, the payments for a HELOC will still end up being covered by what our normal electrical bill will be at this point. And again, like I said, we'll talk more about the details of the finances when I'm sitting in front of a spreadsheet, but it should pay off in 11, 12 years at the maximum. I don't have all my quotes back yet, but to give you an idea. And part of the reason it's gonna take that long is because I'm not just gonna be installing solar, I also have to replace my roof. Like, the roof is in decent condition, but you're definitely having the stuff underneath the shingle come through. A lot of the granules are scraping off at this point. It's not a roof in dire need of repair, but if I'm gonna put solar on it, I should replace the roof first. So that's gonna be our first financial number. That's like $15,000. It's a little under $15,000. I think it's $14,002. So first big cost, one that does not go into the tax credit, no matter what anybody wants to tell you. Now, let's pivot for a moment and talk about the design of what I'm planning to put on here. There's gonna be 12 modules over here. I think like 9 of them over here. This is the south side, right? So I'm not gonna put any panels here for, we'll get into that into the design session, probably in a video or two. I came up on the roof in bare feet for the bit, but boy, it's toasty. I'm kind of regretting it. Now on the north side, we are also going to be covering this side of the roof with panels. When you're thinking about putting solar on a roof, you generally are gonna go for do the south side. That's gonna be where you get the most production overall. And if you have an east to west roof, that's also not a bad idea. You don't get quite as much production, but your production is actually more even throughout the day. So especially if you're doing an off-grid system, east to west tends to make the most sense for what you're trying to accomplish. Putting panels on the north side is an act of desperation because you have nowhere else to put them. And I happen to have a roof that on the south side just doesn't have as much real estate as the north side. And the north side is going to produce energy. So it's worth putting them on, but the modules on the north side are gonna take longer to meet their return on investment, if you know what I mean. Like, this will double the amount of money I have to spend on solar panels themselves, but it'll only add maybe 2/3, maybe a half of the production that you would get from the south side. They're still gonna be cranking in summer, just not as much. And even with that, I think I'm only hitting like 80% of my usage for this house. So it's not gonna cover 100% of my electrical bill. It's still gonna pay itself off over time. And now I'm gonna talk about one of the things that really was keeping me from trying to pursue solar and figure out how to make it work for me up until now, and that is rapid shutdown devices. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I am a solar technician. I troubleshoot stuff, I fix things, I see how everything goes wrong. And the requirement in 2017 to have every module shut down voltage when the fire company tells it to has been one of the most destructive things for American solar. What it requires basically is to put a device underneath each solar panel, sometimes one per two, and it has an ability to signal back and forth with your inverter to shut itself down when the inverter shuts down. That adds a ton of connections on the roof, a ton of connections that could fail. You're just statistically adding to your probability of failure on the roof. And those devices I've seen fail a lot for a lot of various reasons. Optimizers and microinverters back in the 2010s really had bad reliability rates, just terrible. They've gotten better, but there's still devices on your roof that are sucking down your efficiency and creating a footprint to fail. Rapid shutdown devices are a lot more dumb. They just turn on and off when they're like a little electronic relay switches without actually being relays. But those often have some interesting installation restraints that, if installed improperly, melt down and cause fire, sort of going the opposite direction from the intent of protecting firefighters. If you have more fires and more things that you need firefighters to pay attention to, that's just sort of naturally less safe. Anyway, I'm rambling far too long about this. There's a standard called UL 3741 that allows you to reduce the number of rapid shutdown devices on your roof as long as everything's listed to work together. And there were developments last year where we all of a sudden started seeing residential listings, which is awesome. And we also started seeing racking companies have more general listings where they're not specifying specific inverters, specific shutdown devices, etc., which is what I'm gonna do. Normally these days, if you're doing a 3741 installation, you're using like a Tesla inverter and like Iron Ridge racking, or like basically anything works with Tesla these days. I don't want to go with Tesla for several reasons I'm not going to get into right now. And if you want to do batteries, literally at all, you kind of don't have a ton of options, at least with the normal brands of racking that have very specific restrictions on their listing. Solus is a great option. I have not had bad experiences with Solus recently, but I wanted to get outside the box of what somebody might think about when doing something like this. So the plan is to get a Solarc inverter, have my Solarc inverter sit out here, have my disconnect over here if I have a rapid shutdown button, or like for the batteries and for the solar on the roof. That's gonna probably be down here. I could put the button up at the meter, but the meter's right up there on top of the deck. Put the inverter down here, it's nice and shaded. It's always good to have your inverter experience less heat, regardless of what the manufacturer says. And then I'm gonna put batteries on the opposite side of this wall. Now, you are gonna have to excuse the mess, and I'm actually gonna have to go in a different direction because this door's blocked. But while I don't have to have batteries this year, because as it turns out, batteries are exempt from the changes in the big, beautiful bill, Very stupid, so stupid. But I also just want to have batteries on my house. I like the idea of having backup, and I'm the frickin' solar boy. I need to have experience with this stuff. One of the problems is our house does not have a lot of storage, evidenced by the stuff all this stuff we're actually gonna get rid of at some point. We just haven't yet, so excuse the mess. But back here is a crawl space. Let me show you here. Observe my wife's art. It's gorgeous. So back here, the light doesn't work. This is a deep, deep dark tunnel, but this is like, you know, a good 24 inches from the actual concrete wall to this facade that a previous owner built on for some reason and then chose to not add any storage back in here. So it seems like a natural opportunity to not only create a hole in the wall over here that lets us put some doors on it so that we can get at the batteries and have the batteries in both a temperate environment and also mount them on a non-combustible wall, which is always a good thing, but also add a bunch of like pantry space back here maybe. Like we could have a place to store things. I don't know what the people were thinking as they were building this house. We have like 3 closets aside from the bedrooms. And they're really small. But that's the basic overview. Let's talk at a bit of a high level about finances here, and we'll wrap up the video for now because I don't want this to get too bloated. So we've talked about need a new roof. We've talked about want to do UL 3741, reduce the number of devices on the roof. I haven't talked about like how big the system is. So this system, I will put it on the screen right here so you can see. This is my current plan as of now. I'm gonna be using a 425 watt Trina module if I can get them. My local supplier just recently ran out of them, so I might need to ship them in from somewhere. And hopefully that stays in stock because I kind of need it for this design, and I'll talk more about that in my design video. But planning on doing a total of 6 strings. 2 strings of 6, 1 string of 9 on the south roof, and 3 strings of 8 on the north roof, having those be controlled by the MNSSR 600S-SS, I think is the model number of the Midnight Solar string shutdown device. Then those are gonna feed into a Solarc 15 kilowatt hybrid inverter that can basically run off grid if you need it to. For the batteries, planning on getting these sick 100 amp hour eco-worthy batteries. They're server rack batteries. You can mount it on a wall. They are super cheap. Right now I'm planning on getting 60 kilowatt hours of battery for like $10,000, which is absurd. I remember like 6-7 years ago, I remember putting in a 120 kilowatt hour system that had to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like I could replicate that system with maybe it would be less than $100,000 today. It's ridiculous how low these prices have gone. So right now, if we're counting up how much this thing is gonna cost, it's $14,250 for the roof replacement, $5,500 for a Solarc inverter. The modules at the place that I think will still have them when I'm ready to order them, that's gonna be like $8 grand, something like that. Shutdown devices are like $2 grand unless I can get them a la carte from somewhere. The racking, I don't know. I still got to get a quote on that. Throw in $10,000 for the batteries. We'll say $2,000 for other electrical equipment in general, wire, disconnect, stuff. Just throw $2,000 at that right now. I estimated racking here at like $10,000. I don't think it's gonna be $10,000. I would be shocked if it's $10,000. I'm just putting it there for right now because I don't have a better number. So that leaves us at like 52 grand for the cost of this system, including a roof replacement, which is not technically the cost of the solar. Without that, we're closer to 35 grand, 37, something like that. Looking at my electric bill, my yearly usage of power is about 23,000 kilowatt hours, so 23 megawatt hours. This system, as I have it currently designed, is gonna offset that by 18 megawatt hours. So that's about 78% of what I use in a year. Let's look into the ROI on this and then we'll be done for now. So my energy cost right now per kilowatt hour is 17.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Times that out across, 23 megawatt hours, it's a chunk. If we are assuming this system produces about 18 megawatt hours per year, that's a savings of $3,100 per year, based just on my electric bills as they currently stand. So if we're calculating ROI, return on investment, including the roof that needs to be replaced in the next 5 to 10 years, kind of regardless of whether I put solar on it or not, that returns on investment in about 13 years. So if we are, again, assuming that electric rates stay the same, because I couldn't be bothered to put like a 2% adder on it. I didn't feel like I needed to right now. If we take the roof replacement out entirely, the ROI comes in at year 9. It's completely paid off if I'm just throwing money at it that I would have paid toward my electrical bill. After that, pure profit. And again, that's without putting any adders on the electrical rate of what I'm paying for my electricity. It starts penciling really fast. For the kicks of fun and stuff and things, let's estimate out an electrical power bill with that adder. Okay, we've got our electric cost over the years per kilowatt hour. Boy, I should be using Excel on this, but I just don't wanna. We're gonna throw the without the roof replacement in here first. And this is also assuming the tax credit, right? I might not be able to use the tax credit right in year 1, but certainly over the course of the life of this system, I would expect I should be able to. Having kids really complicates the whole tax credit thing. Complaining about this is not, I'm not actually complaining. Champagne problems, but the child tax credit does sort of reduce the amount that you can use of the solar tax credit, but it does roll over from year to year. So if we just add on the kilowatt hours up in here, we then see what our electricity costs every single year over here. So year 1, we'll bring this down. That's year 1. At that point, estimating a 2% increase every year is going to get us to positive cash flow in year 8, which is a really good ROI for residential. Like, that's shockingly good. And that includes the battery costs. That's with batteries. It's so cheap. The government can't keep us down. Now, I said this is the last thing we were gonna do, but what if we took out the tax credit? Okay? If we took out the tax credit entirely out from year 1 and we just kept going like this, you can see that. So the next year, kind of regardless of what it costs in year 11, we're gonna be in positive cash flow by year 11. This is without roof replacement, without tax credit. That's still a pretty good ROI, but why not make 2 years worth of solar for free from the government, who are incentivizing its citizens currently to make their own power and become more self-reliant so that you can become a bigger economic producer in the economy. Obviously, this isn't including the interest on this loan, but you get the idea. In 8 to 9 years, the solar will have paid itself off and we'll be working on paying off the roof replacement that I would have to have gotten anyway. But anyway, I'm going way longer than I expected to on this video, but that gives you an idea of what I'm hoping to do, how I'm planning to do it, what my financial payback is, why I'm doing it, right? And I hope this is going to be useful for those of you who are also thinking about solar in future years, even when there's not a tax credit, because there is always gonna be benefit to putting solar on your house. It's really a question of how are you going to get the money to buy it right now? And will that still be worth it for you to have your money tied up like that over the course of the amount of time that you're spending paying it back? Now, keep in mind, this system is also $38,000 because I'm doing all the work, I'm installing it, I'm designing it, all of that. So you get a similar system from another installer. This will probably be closer to like 60, 65,000 if I had to guess, because they gotta make money and they have a lot more people to pay. So you're very much watching as close to the metal as you can get on the finances side, because I'm providing all my labor for free, hoping that you will watch my labor and YouTube will pay me back for it. Actually, I'm kidding, the solar will pay me back for it. Doesn't matter, whatever this video does. I'm just excited to put this information out there for you. The next video will be about the nuts and bolts of design. We are gonna get deep on it, why I made the decisions I made, what sort of restrictions I kind of have based on the decisions that I'm making, and what are sort of the alternatives that I could have gone with if I'm not going with the system that I currently have. Until next time, if you are curious about learning more about 3741, peep the hat, I run the website called the 3741 reference at ul3741.com. If you're a professional, use it. It's free. It gives you all of the inverters, all of the racking, all of the rapid shutdown devices that are currently listed, specifically listed together to work. Gonna make your job so much easier if you want to explore this route instead of doing rapid shutdown devices all the time and replacing solar edge inverters like nuts. But please leave your feedback in the comments. I want to know what you guys are thinking, what questions you have. I'm hoping to post this video before I start recording the next one, so would love to get feedback and hear questions from you all as I'm doing this, and we're gonna put it together, you know, together. It'll be fun. I'm gonna go work on mowing the lawn probably, because I've been putting that off and that needs done today. Bleh. Maybe I'll throw a robotic lawnmower in this HELOC too. We'll see. Let the solar pay off the robot lawnmower so I don't have to mow my lawn constantly. That is all. Love you all. Stay shiny and let's solar. That's not my tagline. I'm not gonna do that ever again. Stay shiny.